right, let's start with your relationship with Bill Russell. You cold called him.
I did.
Why?
Well, I wanted to learn. I think that the most important thing that we can do when you want to learn is to actually pick up the phone and ask. And so I picked up the phone and I reached out to Bill Russell, and that began a great relationship of mentorship. And he had a lot of great stories to share with me, not just things on the court, but off the court. Especially in that time when he was playing, those two things could not be separated because one went with the other.
So how has your relationship with Bill Russell evolved since you made that initial call?
Well, I was getting ready for my jersey retirement ceremony, and my phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's Bill. And Bill says, I'm in the area. I would love to come. I said, I didn't even think that you would want to come to my retirement ceremony. He's like, I would love to be there for you. And so he came down, and he and I had a chance to spend some time together. And he's been a great mentor for me.
What have you learned from Bill Russell?
Wow. So tactically speaking, because I always geek out about the game. He said when I played, I could score the ball, I could handle the ball, and I could pass the ball. But it was really important in order for us to win. I had to look at my teammates and say, okay, there's other players here that do that better. Therefore, I must allow them to do that. And what I do best is defend and rebound. So I'm going to completely focus on that. Let Kuzi handle the ball, right? Let Sams be the shooter, Havlicek be the shooter. And I thought that was a very, very insightful thing that I used in how I was able to go on and win those two championships post-Shaq.
What did you learn about leadership from Bill Russell?
Wow, one of the things he said is, at the time he was dealing with a lot of racial issues in Boston, and stories, people throwing things at him during the game and yelling, the craziest things to him on the court. I said, well, how did you deal with it? He said, well, I internalized it. I felt like the best thing that I could do is use that as fuel, as opposed to just simply having an emotional outburst to them. I decided to use that as energy to enhance my performance, right? So even though it seems as if he's tuning out the noise, he isn't. He's hearing it and he's using it.
Most black athletes, there's a certain duality. You have this platform and you have this success that you have, but you're also still a black man in America. How have you balanced that, or how did you balance that throughout your career, and how are you balancing that now?
Well, you just got to do what's right. You got to do what's right. You got to stand up for what it is that you believe in. And, I think the struggle always seems to be of what is available to you now, as opposed to what's the right thing to do for years to come, right? And I think the easiest thing that we can do is just do what is right now, even if it may seem uncomfortable, even if it doesn't seem like it's publicly accepted. You got to do what's right.
When you look across the landscape of the black athletes today, whose leadership impresses you the most?
Well, I think what Colin Kaepernick stood for is the epitome of doing what he believes is right. Now, things have been taken out of context and misconstrued, and they try to bend it this way, that way, and missing the point of what it is, the message that he was getting across. And I think having the bravery to be able to do that is something that we should all stand for.
You decided to donate to his campaign, his fundraising campaign. What made you do that?
Well, exactly that. I mean, it's very hard as a black athlete to just simply sit here and say, you know what, we're comfortable, we made it, we have it made. It's okay. We don't need to jump into this thing. It's too much controversy. We don't need it. Is that the right thing to do? No, it's not. So why do it, right? So it was a very easy decision for me.
What do you think about what's happened to his NFL career?
You know what I think he'll get his shot, and I think there's going to be a lot of people out there that want to see him fail, and he's not going to. And he'll rise to the top again, and everybody will look back at what a great story it was. That's what I think is going to happen.
When you look at everything that he's done and everything that he's been through, what kind of influence do you think that's had on other black athletes?
Well, I think it gives a sense of urgency, You know, it wasn't like the issues weren't there already. But I think when Colin initiated what he did, it brought a sense of urgency and a sense of call to action and immediacy that wasn't there before. Right? It brought it to a national level, something that cannot be ignored anymore. And I think it gave a sense of urgency, and we need to do something, and we need to do something now.
How do you see the identity of the black athlete and how it's evolved from maybe the time of Russell to the time of Kobe Bryant?
I think there's more influence. You know, I think at the time of Russell was trying to really get your foot in the door, which they managed to do, and break new ground, and all the way up to going through, you know, Dr. J and the endorsements that came from that, right? All the way through Magic and Michael and everything that they've achieved, all the way through, you know, myself and LeBron, these guys, and now what comes next, right? And I think it's our responsibility to try to help the next generation progress, just as the generation previous to us left the industry in a better place for us.
When you think about someone like Martin Luther King Jr., one of the biggest icons in the world, what comes to mind?
Patience, empathy, understanding. Those are the three things that come to mind. I mean, it's hard in certain times to not act impulsively, but his trust in the human spirit and his patience with people and saying, no, this is the right thing to do, this is how we'll go about it, and the determination to stick with that and believe that the human spirit will eventually triumph are the things that inspire me the most.
Thinking about your leadership role now, how is it different for you now that you're in retirement? Do you feel more empowered? Do you feel the responsibility to be more vocal? How do you see yourself? How do you see your role now?
Well, it's different now. It's changed. You know, when I played, you know, the vehicle through which I can communicate through interviews and things of that nature, that's what I had available to me. Now it's different. Now in the storytelling business, there are characters that we will create, you know, short stories that we will write, movies that we make. That is where we can really help move culture forward. And so we're really excited about what we're creating here.
Is that part of how you see the what's next question for
Oh,
you?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. You know, storytelling moves the world. It changes everything, whether it's information or inspirational. Nothing in this world moves without story. And so, extremely, extremely excited to bring strong characters to the world that show the next generation how to progress.
When you think about the role of the black athletes have played in terms of advancing society, how important do you think, you know, people like Bill Russell and Muhammad Ali have been in advancing the general agenda of America?
Well, crucial. You know, what we stand for, what America stands for. You know, the cultural melting pot that is America, the diversity that is America. I mean, it's all about moving that culture forward. And from Muhammad Ali to Bill Russell, I mean, that's what they've done. That's what they've pioneered. And it's our responsibility to try to carry that forward. And you know, the good thing about it too in this age of multimedia is that we all have different vehicles through which we can do that. Be it social media, be it you know, protests before a game, be it interviews, or be it film. You know, we all have different vehicles through which we can communicate.
Just in terms of what they did, maybe athletically, but also socially, you mentioned a few names about the athletes today, black athletes today, that you feel have been really inspiring for you. Who is the black athlete that has most inspired you throughout your life?
Well, you know, Michael Jordan for me was always, you know, the person that inspired me the most. And you know, how he carried himself, how he handled things, and how he carried the athlete, the black athlete, not just in the United States of America, but became a global phenomenon, and saying, okay, a black athlete can reach the masses and inspire the masses on a global scale.
LeBron seems to be someone embracing kind of that role while he's still in the peak of his career. When you look at his evolution, what kind of comes to mind for you?
I think it's, you know, for Bryant, I don't think it's much of a tough choice for him to to speak on it. You know, I think this is like he's going to do what's right. He's going to say his piece, and whether you're a fan of his or not, if you were a fan and you don't agree with what he's saying, and now he just lost a fan, he's fine with that because he's going to do what's right. And I think that's a great example for all of us.
How do you get to that point as a black athlete? Does it come with as you have more success, or what happens? What triggers that? And maybe something triggered it for you personally.
No, I think, you know, for me, and I'm sure for Bryant as well, is, you know, the way we approach the game is the same way we approach life. You do the right thing. You make the right play. You make the right play. And in life, it's the same thing. What do you feel in your heart is the right thing to do? And you do that. You know, it seems so simple, but sometimes the simplest things are the hardest things to do. And I think it's just that.
To use a basketball term, we'll pivot a little bit from the socially conscious directions we are going in, and ask you about something that I'm sure is near and dear to your heart. Your Philadelphia Eagles just won the Super Bowl. Everybody has seen this viral video of you.
I can't believe my wife caught that.
Of you.
I was in my zone.
You were in your zone. Dropped a few not
I
safe for
did.
work words.
Yeah.
So what was that moment like?
Well, it's like the spirit of the eagle took a hold of me, and I just could not contain myself. But I had to because I was holding our little 1-year-old, but still, like it was that moment where, you know, like you see the ball in the air, and I'm just like, no. You see it's Gronk, and you're just like, no, please, no. And the ball's juggling around, you're like, no. Because you've seen the Patriots make those plays time and time again, right? So the ball hits the ground, I'm like, yes. And I look at the clock, I'm like, oh my God. You know, it's like everything just kind of happened one after the other. And I'm just thankful, honestly, that I didn't like tear a hamstring or something, jumping around. Or
Tear up some furniture, baby.
Exactly.
Clearly, it does not compare to you actually winning a title, but is it kind of a close second, if you will?
Well, it was more exciting because, you know, it's when you play, you're in control of the game. You know, you're in that moment, right? You don't have the nervousness because you know what the sequences are, you know what the options are, you know? But watching it, you're just completely helpless. It's just like, oh my God, like, you know, you start feeling weird. Like, okay, if I shift to the right, what's gonna happen, you know? Or maybe if I shift to the left, oh, I moved too much, let me just sit still right here. You know, it's that whole superstition thing.
Kobe Bryant, like being superstitious, this is pretty interesting.
No, I know, because, you know, because again, like I'm in total fan mode.
Right.
Which is different than being, you know, in game mode.
When you had a little control. So where, for you, you know, if they never win again, right? I'm not saying they will, not putting that on there, but if they never win again, like how much will you look back and cherish, you know, being able to witness something that hadn't happened
my
in a long
God,
time?
I'll cherish that forever.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you know, I like our chances to do it again, though. Knock on wood. You know what I mean? But you know, I don't think any of them are satisfied.
Yeah. Was it more special for you because, you know, to experience that fan? Because I imagine you don't experience that very much, right?
Ever.
Yeah.
You know, but I've endured years of taunting and teasing from past teammates and friends and co-workers, you know, because they're Steelers fans, Cowboy fans, Patriot fans, and I could never really be a part of that discussion because they always just say, well, we got a chip. You don't. It's just that just kind of ends the discussion. You know what I mean? So years of torment are now over.
Does it make it sweeter that it was the Patriots?
Honestly, I wouldn't care who it was.
Okay.
I wouldn't care who it was. You know, Tom and Bill, I admire very, very, very much, and I love both of those guys. So it could have been playing against anybody, quite frankly.
Real quick question about mentorship. You've taken a lot of different guys, kind of under your wing. I don't want to, you know, overstate it either or undersell it. So why did you want to step in and play that particular role? Everybody knows about your relationship with Kyrie and Isaiah Thomas. Like, what drove you to become a mentor to kind of younger players around the NBA?
Well, it's the same thing my mentors did for me coming up, you know, from the age of 18, you know, from Bill Russell. I remember when I first had the idea of building a studio, I reached out to Oprah and we sat on the phone for an hour and a half just talking, and her giving me incredible words of wisdom about how to go about it. Because of that, it's my responsibility to do that for the next generation that may have questions as well. I mean, that's what we do. We help each other out. I think it drives me crazy when people say, okay, you guys are all in this pot. You guys are all fighting over the same thing. Therefore, they pit one against the other, whether it's me or Brian and KD. It's like, stat and all sorts of stuff going on. And it's nonsensical. We all need to help each other out. So I think it's part of my responsibility to do that.
And do you find that when you're giving advice or talking to them, like, how much, there are a lot of people often accused, like, younger players of not being open to that kind of thing. But from what you've seen of the guys that you've talked to, like, how much willingness do you find in them to have that kind of fellowship and mentorship with you?
Well, it's been great. I mean, I've seen a lot of willingness from the players, and to the point where they'll send me video clips and ask me what do I see, and call me about certain matchups or certain defensive packages that may be giving them problems, and they seem to enjoy it. And then some of them come out here during the summer too, and we'll spend some time in the gym, working on things. So.
They still think they can take you, or?
Well, right now, probably, yeah. Only time I touch a basketball now is to shoot with Gianna. So.
Now, obviously,
but she would challenge them though.
I'm sure.
She absolutely would.
Okay.
My best thing is like when we go out, people come up to us, like it'll be me and Gianna, and they'll come and like, Kobe, when are you gonna have a boy? When are you gonna have a boy? And Gianna's looking at them. And they're like, we need a boy to carry on your legacy. And she's like, I got this. I need no boy to do that. I'll take care of this.
That's good parenting.
Oh my God, it's like the greatest thing ever.
Now, obviously, the NBA All-Star Game out here in Los Angeles. What do you think about the drafting format?
Well, I mean, from a competitive standpoint, if I was still playing, I'd be really quick to talk trash about how the East just finally said, you know what, we'll never beat the West, so we got to do something different because the West was just kicking butt every single year over year. So that's kind of what I would say. As I sit here now, I think it turned out to be fine. I mean, it's like the greatest pickup game in the world. You got two captains, pick your squad, I pick my squad, and now let's see.
Be totally honest. If you were the captain, representing obviously the West, when you and Shaq were on different teams, would you have put Shaq? Would you have drafted Shaq?
What year are we talking Shaq?
Okay.
What
Let's
Shaquille
say
O'Neal year?
The Miami Heat first year.
The Miami Heat first year.
Yeah.
No, I'll take LeBron James. You kidding me?
Would you have drafted Shaq
Oh
on your team
man,
at all?
if I had the opportunity, yeah, I would have.
Really?
But man, I gotta LB, man. I would have drafted him for sure.
Okay, because people wondered about LeBron. Like, would he think about drafting Kyrie?
Yeah, no, I think I think we tend to make a lot more of it than it actually is. I'm sure there's disagreements and stuff like that. I mean, you know how that goes, right? But ultimately, when you get on the basketball court, guys respect each other and they just want to play and compete. So I never see it as being much of a problem.
All right. Obviously, one of the biggest issues in sports was the national anthem. Peaceful protest that took place with the NFL players. Given the NBA's stance on standing for the national anthem, seeing the landscape in sports, if you were still playing, would that have been something you would have participated in?
Yeah, I would have participated in it for sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I would have gotten some flack for it, but that's fine. I think what Colin's message was a very simple one. This police brutality needs to stop. We need to take a look at that.
What kind of conversations, I guess, could you have imagined taking place in the locker room as that was going on? Like, if you were still... Well,
I mean, from my experience in the locker room, it doesn't seem like any of the players that I've played with certainly would have had issue with that. I think we understand this is a free country. I think we have the right for peaceful protest. We have the right to... And by the way, I mean, from my point of view, I mean, that's what the flag represents as well. The ability to speak, the ability to voice your opinion, and everybody's entitled to that. So everybody getting up in arms about it, they're certainly in their right to do that, as we're certainly in our right to protest peacefully at that.